Hello everyone. For once I'm going to be doing a quasi-serious video here. I was looking on my phone and I saw this article about a new law taking effect in Florida. Homeowners face fines for parking on their own property under new February 1st law as drivers say they're screwed. Now this is in Florida. Okay? A new parking law has taken effect and left homeowners with multiple cars unable to find parking for their vehicles at home. Now, this would sound bad at first, but until you read a little bit more, it says, while some are planning to expand their driveways to account for the new parking rule, many feel they're being treated unfairly. Now, I'm going to tell you right off the bat, I don't think they are being treated unfairly. Because, as it shows in this image, it shows a empty street. And it says, the streets of Boynton Beach are, for the most part, clear of cars following the city's new parking law taking effect. It's basically, and the very next image shows cars parked on the lawns, on the yards, and multiple cars. And this is something that I personally have an issue with. When you have, and there's many examples of this, but the two that really stand out to me is if you are one person, okay, and you have multiple vehicles. You've got your work vehicle, be it a truck or a van. You've got your casual, everyday, going on errands car, may it be an SUV or a sedan. And then you've got your car that you're working on, fixing up, sitting on the, the fucking lawn, or out front just dripping fluids everywhere, or it's an old car that you used to drive but you just don't have the heart to get rid of, so you just let it sit there and rot away. I've seen it all too often, where people will have more cars than they absolutely need, and then there are the other people who have cars for as many people that live in the home. Such as my non-English speaking, I believe to be Venezuelan neighbors who have been there for 7 months, about 7 months now. They have completely destroyed their yard. They park multiple cars. Like, everybody that lives there has a car. And when they first moved in, they had one inoperable Honda Odyssey that sat right out front of their property, and only limiting anybody parking in front of them, like 1 to 2 spots to park. And on top of that, like I said, I asked them, said, hey, is there any possibility if this car doesn't move, can you move it farther back so you leave more open parking? They said they couldn't because it was dead. Well, it eventually finally got towed, so I was happy. But in that time, they actually had purchased another Honda Odyssey, a white Honda Odyssey, that they were using for a very short period of time before it, in fact, itself died, and they had it in their driveway. And it sat there for a good little while. And before it finally, I guess they sold it to somebody. Either way, they still now seem to have approximately anywhere from 6 to 8 cars of people that live there. And they have guests over all the time, double parking in the driveway, blocking the sidewalk, and sometimes sticking out into the street. And they would park all the way up to my driveway. Sometimes they'd actually block my driveway, and I have to correct them, saying, we came home one day and they were blocking our driveway, just getting out and getting ready to walk up. And I'm like, no, move your fucking car. No fucking way. So that is why this particular story is so interesting to me, because it says some drivers are still parking their cars on their lawns despite it now being outlawed. There should be no issue there, because these people need to get their cars off of their lawn. Because here's the thing, you buy that house, say for a certain price, right? Say you buy it for $150,000. Let's just say $150,000, and the grass is green, it looks perfect and everything. You move in and you start just driving over the grass, destroying the grass, killing your grass, letting your kids dig it all up, and but then, like I said, you park a car on it and you just leave it sit there and it kills the entire yard. What do you think happens to that $150,000 value that you just spent on that house? You are dramatically decreasing the property value of that home. And to be honest, it affects other properties in the area. Say, for instance, I wanted to sell my home, but the house next door has a dead lawn, it's got a broken driveway, tons of nastiness and broken down cars filled with junk, okay, trash everywhere, okay, and the house is falling apart on the inside. What do you think that does to my property value? Okay? And that is something that I've noticed with a lot of not in neighborhoods that have a lot of Latin American people living in them. That these people always seem to have an exorbitant amount of cars. They build up so much trash. And I'll be honest with you. Just before I started recording this video, I saw my neighbors literally carrying several bags of trash out to their Traverse out there and loading it into the Traverse, which tells me one thing, that they are getting ready to take that trash somewhere to dump it, because their trash can is always overflowing. Now here's the other thing. I haven't seen their trash can in about a week. Since the last time it got picked up, it's not been in front, it's not been in back. I don't know if it's in their garage or not, but this is the first time I've ever noticed them loading that much trash into a car. This was a shit ton of trash. And I told you again, up to 9 cars are there at any given time. And I think they let people live there, because this house is literally 2 houses in one. And I've lived in a house like this for a little while in Newark, Ohio for a while, and I think they're awesome houses in my personal opinion. The upstairs has bedrooms, bathrooms, kitchens, dining rooms, living room, you know, all that. And the downstairs has all the same stuff. It's got rooms, it's got a living room, a dining room, a back patio, and a kitchen, you know, but the upstairs has a balcony. I mean, it was a beautiful house. And this house, the people who used to live there, their names were Dave and Wilma, sweetest old couple you could ever imagine. Sweetest as all hell. And they were friends of the family. But eventually they passed on, and then the new people who lived there, Chris and his wife, we never learned her name, but and they lived there for about 10 or so years, if not more. And they were fine. They were perfectly fine people. They didn't bother us. We didn't bother them, although their dogs were a little noisy. But we nothing we could do about that. Other than that, when they moved out, they were nice enough to let me know. They said that one woman is on the lease, and she said, and when they told me that she didn't even speak English, and then that they paid in cash, and I'm like, what the fuck? And the next thing I know, I see multiple cars start, one after another, just start pulling up, and they're all bringing out trash bags of stuff that look like clothes and burnt belongings and stuff like that, and taking it inside. But I never saw a moving van. And they just, and ever since then, they have lived like garbage. They've had Orkin out twice, and one of them let it slip to me, because when I saw it, you have to ask, when you live next door to anybody and you see the bug bus come out to take care of any pests they may have, I believe you have a legal right to say, hey, what did they got? Because I'll tell you what, they were trying to avoid me on that one. Orkin was trying to avoid telling me what they have, and I was like, I should have a right to know, because if you're spraying for any kind of pests over there, should I expect to be getting any kind of pests too? And when I said that to him, he was like, oh, only thing we can do is give you our information and call us if you need us. Like, no. The best kind of prevention is to not give me them in the first fucking place. And I found out from them themselves, from one of the kids that actually speaks English, she said, yeah, we've been finding little baby roaches. I'm like, oh my fucking God. And I said, if I find one in my home, just one, you are going to hear from me. Do you understand me? Not one fucking roach in this house. There has never been a roach in this house. My entire 44 years of living in this house, there has never been one roach in this house. Never been one rodent from what I remember. No, actually, I forgot. There were a few mice that they had to deal with, but they took care of it a long time ago. I mean, who doesn't get a mouse every so often? As old as this house is, you know. But this rule, this law, to me, it makes perfect sense. Stop ruining your lawns. The next step that I would take is trash. You know, clean. I mean, back in the day, there was nobody who wouldn't be inclined to tell you, hey, neighbor, do you mind picking up the trash off your yard? You know, it's kind of making the rest of the neighborhood look bad. You know, it's like, hey, do you mind mowing your lawn? It's getting a little overgrown. Hey, if you can't do it, if your lawnmower's broken, I'll do it for you. You know? And we've seen those videos too where somebody offers to mow their lawn for free and they'll say, no, they don't want to mow it for free. They don't want it mowed. But then there's also people who say that they are getting fined and getting in trouble with their local local leaders with the city about mowing their lawns and keeping their lawns kept up. And so that I'm all for that. But there should be extenuating circumstances, obviously, for age or disability reasons such as that. But there is no excuse. There is no excuse to park cars on your yard. I mean, I could take you out there, you know, in a different video and show you all the damage that they've done to their home in 7 months. 7 months that they've been there, they have done so much damage, and it's absolutely I can't believe it. It's crazy. I mean, we've all seen people who run over toys. You know, you've seen the tire tracks in the dirt before, and like stuff they just run over. But they literally ran over their own kids' toys. Now, I will be honest with you, they have not done it, obviously, because the ground has been so muddy and so nasty. They have not been doing it. But they would park up to 1 to 2 cars on their yard. And this may make me sound like a Karen or a Kevin or a Ken, whatever you want to whatever they call them. But no, this makes me a very responsible person, because you should not allow this to happen. Because like I said, it downgrades the entire neighborhood. When people drive down and they're prospecting of living in your neighborhood and they see overflowing trash cans with bags of trash surrounding the can. Like, you cannot control your trash levels that much to where you have because they have so many people that live there and visit all the time. And I work for complexes, as you know, that where it is majority Latino. The dumpsters and trash cans are always overflowing, and there's just tons, and the Corona bottle caps and bottles everywhere. It's like, that shows no care for the place that you live. And that's what's totally, I just don't understand it. We don't do that. And if we do, we have the same mentality. But not everybody does it. Show me a single neighborhood that does not have that one house or those few houses where you drive past and there is just there's just debris everywhere. They never rake up their leaves, they never keep their yard clean, they've got dead bushes, they've got, you know, the house is falling apart, the blinds are destroyed and ripped up, and we all wonder, how can people live like that? How can people allow themselves to get like that? And and sometimes you say, oh, well, it could be disability, it could be mental issues, could be elderly, you know, stuff like that, age-wise and stuff. But no, I see it sometimes as it's just plain, I don't want to. And I don't care. I have seen people who have immediately moved into apartments, and then the very next day, they will cut out, you know, the few slots from the blinds, the side slats from the blinds, just so that they can see who's at the door without having to pull their blinds down. They can peek out the door and see, you know, out the blinds and see who's at the door. And I'm like, and I have literally saw that and knocked on the door. It's like, hey, I'm with maintenance. You just moved in, right? Like, literally 2 days ago, right? And they were like, yeah. I'm like, what happened to the blinds? And he was dumb enough to tell me, yeah, everywhere I live, I do that, so I don't have to move the blinds or look out the peephole because it's dangerous. You know, I can look through my window, you know, without having to touch anything or let anybody know that I'm in there. And I'm like, yeah, but you just damaged, you know, our property. Yeah, sure, you're renting it and you're living here, but you're damaging our property. And this isn't just for homeowners too. And there's even that excuse, well, it's like if you own your home, then you can do whatever the fuck you want on your property. But it's the fact that other people have to see it. And if other people have to see your mess, your trash, and have to deal with your bugs, if you've got, whether it be roaches, bed bugs, anything. If we've got to deal with your mess in any way, shape, or form, that is inconsiderate. It's rude. It's irresponsible. And we have a right to say, hey, keep your trash off of our property and clean up your yard. Because whether people don't realize it or not, you can call your city and say, hey, do whatever you got to do. Say, hey, you need to send somebody out here to look at this property because they are seriously just destroying it. And I don't understand the mentality. And coming back to the article once again, such as it says, prior to the law taking effect, drivers could park their vehicles anywhere on the local streets or their properties with impunity, such as on their front lawns or on the streets in front of their homes. Okay, and it says this law has left Floridians with no other choice but to try to cram their vehicles into a driveway without blocking sidewalks, regardless of how many register to a single home address. And you see, that's the other thing too, is that when you see multiple cars, like I have to see every day, parked out in front of our neighbor's house, it's slowly been adding on. Like I've just noticed this white BMW that's been coming here, and this is you're gonna love this, and I know this is gonna be a long video, but please, I hope you stay through it and watch it. But this white BMW, I noticed started parking here and staying overnight, because it would be here when I would leave. It would be here before I go to bed and be here when I would leave for work. But then when I would come home, it wouldn't be here. But at work, I'm doing my job, picking up the trash. Yeah, and this is why I have such an issue with this, is that this whole thing is that I noticed a white BMW coming towards me as I'm in the road picking up trash, and I was like, that looks awful familiar. So as it passed by, I remembered the first 3 letters on its license plate, and sure enough, the next day when I woke up for work, it was out there. And as I was leaving for work, I took a look at the license plate and I said, no way, it's actually the same car. So I stopped and thought, I want to see if it comes back in the neighborhood again. And sure enough, it did. The next day, I'm out picking up trash and it comes down again. So I kept an eye on where it parked. It parked by one of our ranch homes there, our ranch apartments, and it was there for a few minutes and then it left. And I noticed that there was only one guy driving it. And when it left, only one person driving it. So I'm like, what the hell? Maybe he just stayed the night at that person's house, but it was 2 nights in a row. Okay, 2 nights in a row. And he was still parked there, and he would come to the thing, to my complex and do something. So then I found out that he was dropping off an infant to someone. Whether it be the mother or a babysitter, but he was dropping off a baby. So basically, that tells me that this man is staying next door with an infant that he takes to a babysitter, because everybody here basically does seem to go have a job during the day. And guess as what? The guy who owns the father figure guy who owns a white truck, he's a roofer. And the mother, she's a cleaner, because you can see you see the guy with the foam pads from like cushions and couch cushions that they use to crawl around on roofs, and she's got all this cleaning chemicals and stuff in her car. So that just so stereotypical. And so these are the people who are doing this and who are pissed off. You just got to think, in Florida, there's a shit ton of Mexican and Latino people in Florida. There's a ton of them. So I'm guaranteeing you that this is them. And on my walk to work, I see tons of these houses where there are cars parked up on their yards and in like half off their driveway on both sides so that they have more room. Multiple cars, dead cars, And we did recently here in Ohio, but it seemed to be only on the west side, where they cleaned up the abandoned dead cars. They told everybody, hey, get these cars off the street or we're going to tow them. And sure as shit, they did. And after it all happened, I was curious because I know those streets. If you live in Columbus, Ohio, on the west side, you know what I'm talking about because the streets out there were absolutely crammed with cars. It's like if you wanted to get, if someone was coming the other, that's why they had a lot of one-way streets, because they didn't want people trying to come both ways on these streets because there was no chance of that happening. But they finally cleaned up the streets, and I went out there, and sure as shit, it was so much, cleaner. And you can tell where these cars have been sitting for what seemed to be decades. The ruts in the asphalt, and just the staining from the oils and the antifreeze and all the other car fluids and such. I mean, it was horrible, to see, to think about how many vehicles were there. But then all that really did was expose the homes more, because you see their yards full of dead grass, dirt yards, and the kids' toys scattered everywhere, broken bikes, little type toys that have been withstanding the test of time, just getting just sun faded out there and cracked and broken. And unless the city says something to these people, it's like, hey, we know this is your property, but there are some standards that we need to implement that are going to help everybody in the long run. Because if everybody keeps your homes looking good on the outside, and I know we really cannot control what goes on inside, but if someone complains enough of infestations that are spreading to other homes, if they're hoarders, for example, because like in a lot of sense, this house that you're looking at right now my grandmother was a hoarder, but she was not a filthy hoarder. She just hoarded stuff, magazines, knitting and sewing supplies, for making dolls, crossword puzzles, old TV guides, stuff like that. Stuff she saw on TV, she would, as seen on TV, she would buy. And as for, for the rest of us, we did live in this house in a big clutter of stuff. Several of these rooms were completely filled with stuff. The room behind me was filled with stuff. The room I'm still staying in until I move into the actual big room, because I have my own reasons for not yet moving into my grandfather's old room, my grandparents' old room. I'm staying in the smallest room in the house, but my room was a full hoard of stuff. The garage was completely taken up, full of stuff. The kitchen was overflowing with, kitchen supplies and accessories, as I would call them. Dehydrators and blenders and food processors and Tupperware and certain new pots and pans. If it was new and fandangled, my grandmother would have it. But it's the people that we have to see it is the problem, because you never had to see it from the outside around here, because we as a family always kept the yard mowed and kept up. Sure, we did actually park on the lawn for the longest time, and even as a kid, I hated it. And there was just something about seeing dirt tire tracks in what otherwise would be a perfectly well manicured lawn. Is just so wrong to me. I mean, I don't consider myself a hippie, like a tree hugging hippie, but I hate when people chop down perfectly good bushes and perfectly good trees and destroy their yards for no other reasons than they don't want to have to mow the lawn, or they don't want to have to rake up the leaves from that bush or trim that bush. I mean, when you're driving around and you're looking for a home, do you want to live next door to a home that has no grass, a dozen dead cars, it's trash and it's just nasty, or do you want to live in a neighborhood where everything is clean and kept up? It's pure and simple. So it tells me when I see that kind of level of disregard for the people that you live around, it tells me one thing, that you are trying to get them to leave because you don't care. But you don't want other people, you don't care so much that if everybody else left, you can continue to spread your trash. I once lived in an area where this house had been empty on what we call the bottom of the bottoms. And there were several videos. There's several videos on my channel. There's a bunch of videos on my channel from me living there. When we moved in, I had to mow the lawn. But before I could mow the lawn, which was about yay high, okay, I say it was about 4 feet tall of dead grass, of standing grass. I had to go through and pull out all the trash from people who had been throwing their trash in this lot for a decade. Literally. And I'm finding clothes, shoes, tons of glass in cans. The amount of glass, shards of glass that I had pulled out of this yard, I could have filled an entire baseball, a whole basketball stadium from end to end, football field from end to end. I bet, lining it up all piece by piece, but it showed a lack of disregard for even places that aren't yours, and I don't understand people's logic in it. You can't throw your trash in a regular trash can, and it took. The entire time that I lived at that house, it took every day for me to tell someone else, "Hey, stop throwing your trash, in our yard," because I'd wake up every day to bagged up trash just chucked in our yard. I'm like, you gotta be fucking kidding me. So on my days off, I would spend the day out back, making sure nobody fucking did that day or night, and especially at night. That was the fun part, because if I noticed you did it, there was still time for me to run over there, grab the bag, run up to you, and then just throw it right back in fucking your car and say, "Don't throw your fucking trash in my yard." Okay? But you all saw at that house in the backyard what happened after I mowed it. I had to put rocks along the edge of the property back there because it led right into an alley. We didn't have a fence or anything, as you would see if you saw those videos. And people would try to drive past each other and on this narrow alley between our house to get to the actual alley. And we tell people all the time, this is not a fucking main road. Go down the other road to get where you're going around here. You stop using this as a fucking way to get back here. I even called the city and said, "Hey, can we stop this shit? Because it's really fucking annoying. People are using this alley as a main means of travel through the area. Just because they don't want to use the one way that it tells you to go. They try to cheat going around. But I would put rocks. I found chunks of gravel and asphalt and rocks that I would put alongside of our property to keep people from doing that. But you would not be surprised about how many people would still hit the rocks. These giant chunks of rock that I had lined up perfectly to keep people from driving any kind of way onto our yard. And they would still fucking hit it because I'd wake up in the morning and I even caught one of them. They hit it and I was like, I went out there and said, what the fuck are you doing, man? What the fuck are you doing? And they're backing up off of it and then they finally go around. I'm like you're a fucking idiot. And they're just all because they know they fucked up. But about every other morning, I would wake up to a new rock being dragged somewhere because they didn't see the rocks, they didn't anticipate it. So many people did it. Disrespectfully would do it. And these people wondered why we voted for Trump. That's the thing. These are the same people who wondered why we voted for Trump. Because they don't give a fuck. They want to do whatever they want, as long as it's not on their yard. Because what if I came to their house and I started, throwing trash out my car onto their property? How would they react? The same way I would. So they've got no fucking room to talk. So I'm just, God, my eyes twitching. But no, get used to this because I'm going to be doing this more often. And it says, why does it do that? It says, to accommodate this change, some homeowners are exploring their options for expanding their driveways in order for it to fit all their household's vehicles, while others are still ignoring the parking law. Guess which ones are still ignoring the parking law? They will receive a $20 fine for each and every vehicle illegally parked, and can be up to $32 a fine if not paid within 10 days of issuance. Oh, I love that. Oh man, we need somebody here in Ohio that's gonna do that shit. I need to get a hold of somebody. Okay, somebody's gonna hear from me. Because that's perfect. But yeah, they want to redo their driveways. So, like for example, if we put that here, like you cannot have this many vehicles parked out here. They would seriously bulldoze their entire front lawn to put in gravel so they can park there, and they would expand it outward to, like right up to my line, my side of the property, if they wanted to. And I'm like, no, no, because if anything, the city has already come by once back when the old owners used to live here, because they had he had a big white truck that he parked as close up to the garage as he could, because it's just a small driveway, small garage. His car couldn't fit, and all that. And either way, his wife would park behind him, and it would block up the driveway, because they had her son and their sons who lived there as well, and they each had their own vehicle, and they parked two vehicles out on the street in front of the house, and that was it. But what they ended up doing was that he would end up parking his truck over onto the grass, and then she would pull up next to him fully on the driveway because her car was smaller. Well, the city, cops came out and said, hey, told him first time, hey, you can't block the driveway, and you can't be parking over the driveway on this side. It's a tilting hazard, because it was tilting. He tried to use asphalt right in that area, and they said you couldn't do that. And they told us as well that you can't park over the driveway, because we did keep two cars parked in the driveway, my grandfather's and my cousin's, and they told us we couldn't do that anymore. And obviously, you're not allowed to block somebody else's driveway. But they, like I said, like I said before, they tried to do that. They tried to block my driveway, and I said no, not happening. So I left my trash can out front, right next to my property line, so where it's like they just can't do that. They just can't park their cars there anymore. So we are redoing our grass because the city told us to, and we had to expand our driveway because the city told us to. Said Logan Poirier, TPTV, prior to the taking law effect. Other residents are focusing on what they feel as an unfair expectation placed on homeowners. No, it's not. No, it's not. Since the neighborhood is not one with an HOA. Now you see, I'm against these restrictions of HOAs. Okay, that's too much. But there should be an upkeep standard on your homes. If the city can come by and tell you, hey, you haven't mowed your grass in forever, it's overgrown and everything, you must take care of this, you must be in city ordinance compliance. There's city ordinance that every city has. So that's one thing. So this basically is just more city ordinance. And I've got no problem with that. Because who wants to have their ground contaminated by by vehicle fluids? It's not, that's poisoning the ground. What if you got your neighbors who have vegetables, and you've just letting, all this oil and antifreeze and shit just, and all the nastiness from your trash soak into the ground? It's not going to help your neighbor's garden or their grass. I know. I don't like the rules of the HOAs, especially the ones who act like like most of us would call it a Karen. Would be the HOAs. But the fact that this is pissing people off, the people who are pissed off are the people who do it. Where it's like, again, I don't want to come home to 1 million cars around my home. And the whole, because here's the thing. How would you like it if somebody pulled up to your house every day and threw trash out onto your yard because they're in their personal vehicle on public street, and then they just drive off and they have no responsibility for it? This is one of the reasons why I hate Uber and Uber Eats and DoorDash, because I have seen this happen before, where they will pull in and they will deliver their food and then their order, and then as soon as they get in, I'll see them throw something else out the window, out their car, before they get in and drive off. I'm like, really, motherfuckers? And plus, I also don't like the idea of random cars just stopping in front of my home, because who could it be? You ever heard of drive-bys? You ever heard of burglaries? They hop out of a car, burglarize a place, hop back in the car, and drive away. I don't know. basically, I've got absolutely no problem with this law in Florida. As a matter of fact, I wish that it would happen here in Ohio. And actually, I want it to go nationwide, basically. Think about this. If there was a law where you could only own one vehicle, one vehicle, and I'm sorry, if you have a work vehicle, that means yes, obviously you're working for yourself, but what I can't stand is when you actually have a business or a place where you go to get your orders from and your supplies from. Like you actually you go to a job where they send you out to do jobs like plumbing and electrical or roofing or whatever, but you've got your own work van / work truck. I'm sorry, you need to be leaving your work vehicles at work. Semi trucks have to do it because they're not allowed to park out in front of residential homes. They're not allowed to leave their trucks there. And the ones who do, when they eventually get caught, yeah, they have to move their vehicle, their truck. You cannot park a semi-truck on residential streets. And I think the same should also go for box trucks. There is every morning, and I'm not joking you, every morning, slightly after 4 o'clock, when I leave the house, at some point between now and me leaving my neighborhood, there is a box truck that will drive past my house, will come down from the street and drive past my house, knowing damn good and well he can go the easier way out. No, but he's got to come down here with his loud ass box truck and then drives it down here, and it's loud as hell, like I said, and then out of why do I keep saying complex? Out of my neighborhood. And it just shouldn't. And I know where he lives. It's disrespectful. It's inconsiderate, and it should not be happening. And I should not have to talk for almost 40 minutes about this. That is a beautiful law. So people, can we please, for the love of God, just keep your yards clean. Stop keeping cars that you're not using, and I can't stand when people have so many people living with them in one home. It doesn't, and I don't want to hear about the housing crisis because this is voluntary. This is how they save money in Latin families. They will hoard together, they will band together and live off of everybody's income to where they can save more money and then do the same fucking thing somewhere else. At the complex that I work, one of the complexes that I work at, one of the tenants was trying to convert the basement into a place for about 10 immigrants to stay. He had cots and everything. He was building an actual drywalled-in room with running electricity for himself in the back corner of the basement, while every other space and every other room inside the unit was going to be for an illegal. But we caught him and said, no, I had to take down his work, his framing and drywall work. And it was insane. He was literally running electrical through the place. I'd hate to see the bill. So it just goes to show the lengths people will go to destroy a neighborhood by imposing their lifestyle on other people. Now, I'm not trying to impose any of my lifestyle on anybody else, but it should be common sense. Because if anything, they're hurting my property value. Even though I will never sell this house. My grandfather always said people always would send him those letters in the mail about sell your house with us, we'll buy your house. And he said, Rick, if they could send me a check tomorrow for $3 million, I still wouldn't sell this house. And I said, well, why is that? And he said, because this house has never really failed me. Yeah, it's like every house has their issues, but he says this house has still stayed together for so long, to where there's never been really any issue. If you toilet replace, they replaced some of the stuff in the bathroom, a while back. Excuse me. But when I go into people's units and I see the destruction in the place that they were living, like I think what I'm going to do tomorrow is I'm going to show you all the unit that I'm currently in, because I don't think I've made a video in that unit yet. I'm going to show you this unit, and you're gonna get a full view of what I'm dealing with. I mean, I'm not. Luckily I don't have to deal with the bathroom. I do not have to deal with that bathroom in there. Fuck that. Okay, the entire from wall to wall is all. God, what do you call that crap? It's tile work and laminate fucking decored up and everything. The ceiling is the only thing that has exposed drywall. But that's about it. So yeah, when you see the way people live in my videos, these are the people that I have a problem with, because I do not live like that. Okay, and then what I'll do is I'll take you a tour through my home. Okay, because I've had people, while I was living in this home, people were saying, still saying that I live in Section 8. Like, no, what you were mistaking for the units that I work in as my home, because I seem to always make videos at home. Whenever I take a break, I can make a video real quick. It's no big deal. I get my work done. I do my work. As a matter of fact, this unit that I'm in is going to be my longest unit, longest taking unit, because it was that thrashed. But no sooner did those people next door move in did I watch them, bringing stuff out, and they're sawing stuff and drilling and everything. They're redoing this, that, and the other, remodeling, because for some reason, the Latin people just have this necessity to remodel their units. And it's even evident at work, because they repaint, they put shelving paper, or basically wallpaper in their fucking shelves, thinking that's supposed to help, protect them. No, it's not. Because if you look at people even use vinyl tiles. You see, if you haven't seen them, go back in my videos, my at work videos, and you'll see. I got a whole playlist of everything that happens at work, plus other stuff. So it's just one of those things where I want people to be better than this, so I don't have to keep doing this. It's not that hard. And if you've got if you know someone in your family or they're your friends, and they live like this, pull them aside, say, hey bud, look, you can't live like this. I mean, they'll give them the harder treatment. You can't live like this anymore. You got to clean up your act. And if you're a city ordinance or whatever, and ordinance officer, and you work for the city, and you see this, you need to crack down more. You need to crack down more, and you need to push more legislation to get more laws like that Florida law pushed. The stuff that happens in Florida, I love a shit ton of the new laws that I've heard come out of Florida ever since DeSantis was elected. And that's why, when it came to these prior elections where he was running, trying to be the candidate or run for president, I would have supported him if it hadn't been, that I'm supporting Trump. But it would have been DeSantis. Because obviously we know why. Nationwide, all this, oh my God, it would have been so beautiful. Because we need to clean up our streets. I'm tired of being the only one who grabs a picker and bucket and goes around and cleans up all the trash that other people don't seem to want to touch. This is how I feel. Thanks for sticking around with me this long, 43-minute video that is not a live stream, because I'm doing this on the computer, and I'm going to be uploading this. So, yeah, if this works out, get ready for more. And maybe I'll try to trim it down a bit or two, but I got way off topic. But it all blended. And this is what I wanted to do more of. I wanted to do more serious topics of the small, petty things that people take for granted as being an actual issue. But when I hear people talk about systemic issues, these are the systemic issues that grow into something else. For example, do you remember the episode of Shameless where they cleaned up around the house? They took all the graffiti off the house, they cleaned it all up, made it look nice and everything. And then what did you see happen? You saw the black people in the neighborhood literally coming by and destroying it, because all it's doing is making the neighborhood look good, and it's gonna raise all our rent because it's gonna make because it's gentrification. I'm like, wow. So then when I heard that, I was like, I was a little unclear on what gentrification was. So when I looked into it more, I realized, and I found out, oh my God. And then I found out, if you remember that video of the black guy who stuck his gun out the window and he said, "This is how I keep rent low in my complex." Bang, 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 bang. Right? It's intentional. I'm Ravage. Thanks for tearing up with me. And I will see you in the next rage-filled video. Peace.